I want to welcome you to another edition of Finish Line. I always enjoy bringing these interviews to you. It's an opportunity for you to get to know more people in the Church of God, especially as it relates to evangelists. I really enjoy talking to our evangelists in the church. I consider that one of my callings and one of my giftings, and I just enjoy engaging in conversation with others that have that same gift and same calling. Today, I'm very excited to have in the office of the General Overseer a very special guest, Sister Jackie Smith. I've known Jackie for a lot of years. She has evangelized in the Church of God. And Jackie, let me just say welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I can't wait to hear what God is doing in your life and ministry right now. But this is an opportunity that I just cherish because it gives me the chance just to catch up and to hear what the Lord's been doing. There's so much I want to talk about, Jackie, but I don't want to miss this right up front. Mm-hmm. In all the years I've known you, I've heard bits and pieces, heard you witness and testify and preach about your life story. Mm-hmm. But I just want to hear the Jackie Smith story. And in the first segment of this interview, I want to hear, what is the Jackie Smith story?
Well, my story is that from age 10, I started in pursuit of a career in the classical music field. My mother loved classical music so much, and she said if I ever had a daughter, I would want her to be in the opera and oratorio and in that area of music. And so when I was 8 years old, she sought out a voice teacher for me. They said she's too young, so they asked for her to wait for 2 more years. And she did that and went out and got a job. At that time, she did not work outside of the home, but she got a job and made it possible for me to have vocal training. So I started at age 10, and so I was involved in the classical music field from that time up until the time that I got saved. And that was in 1973 when I got saved at age 30.
Wow.
So that's what I did. And then, of course, the Lord saved me. On Good Friday night, March the 18th, 1973.
You remember the dates, don't you?
Oh, yes. It was a very special time because I was really having a very, very difficult time in my life. And I needed for God to, and that's what I said to him, I need you to help me. And I felt like I needed to stop in this big white house on the corner that I had driven by every single day of my life just about. And that happened on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and on Friday I pulled in the driveway and knocked on the door. I had no idea why I was doing that. And a man introduced himself as Reverend Vink Ivy from Virginia.
Wow.
And that he had come there to pastor a church of God. And there were 35 people meeting in that White House on the corner at that time. And so that night on March the 18th, 1973, it happened to be Good Friday night. The Lord saved me. I returned on Easter Sunday morning, and the Lord baptized me in the Holy Spirit.
On Easter Sunday.
Yes, Easter Sunday.
Wow.
And then I was baptized in water, joined the Church of God, and became the minister of music immediately.
And what town was that in?
Hightstown.
Hightstown,
New Jersey.
Wow.
And so that was the beginning of it. That was all the beginning of me being involved in the church and through music and singing. And the Lord opened some wonderful doors for me to minister at our General Assembly as a soloist. And you even played one time for me at the assembly.
I remember that.
Do you remember that, Bishop?
I do.
That was a very special time. And the Lord began to open doors for me to sing at camp meetings and
just one door leads to the next, doesn't it?
That's exactly right.
Let's go back a minute. But before you were saved and you were pursuing the opera career, had you had those kind of opportunities to sing in concert halls and, and that kind of thing?
Yes, I did, in Tivoli, Italy, and other places outside of the country, and at Carnegie Hall in New York, and at Lincoln Center.
You sang at Carnegie Hall?
I did.
Wow.
I did, yeah.
Let me shake your hand. I don't know too many people that have done that. Yeah. I've been there and seen it, but what a magnificent venue.
I had some wonderful opportunities, but I was lost, Bishop.
Yeah. I remember.
When you have the roses thrown on the stage and the parties in your honor, but when you're lost, and that's when I cried out to the Lord. I sang before thousands of people, but I hated people because I hated myself.
Oh my!
And I had to allow God to do a work in my life, even though I was doing very well by worldly standards. I was doing very well, but I was a very miserable young lady, as a matter of fact. Not that I like to tell this, but I like to tell how great God is.
Absolutely.
I was actually delivered from prescription drugs.
Wow.
And I was suicidal. And when I cried out to the Lord that week, and he led me to that house, the Lord delivered me completely from all of that.
Now, Jackie, I know years ago I would hear you sing at the assembly. You have this beautiful, magnificent, projecting, opera-type voice, is the way I will describe it for myself. But then, at some point in time, the call to preach came. Did that come upon your conversion, or was that later? When did that happen?
That was later. It
Okay.
was actually, 5 years? 5 years later, around in that time, I had 3 encounters with the Lord.
Okay.
And one was when the Lord asked me to go into my local church and spend the night, that he wanted to speak to me. And I remember taking, my comforter. He said, you're to go in at 10 o'clock on Friday night and not come out until 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, and no one else is to go in with you. See, the parsonage was right there, so the pastor and his wife stayed up all night because they knew I was over there by myself. And the Lord began to speak to me then, and he spoke to me through his word. How beautiful are the feet of them that preach the gospel of peace and bring glad tidings of good things. Well, I had sung that so many times when I would do the arias for Handel's Messiah. So the Lord used that very song that I would stand on the stage and sing to call me into a preaching ministry. And my second time, I was sitting on the couch, and I kind of fell into a trance, and I saw myself in this huge arena. And the people were all around me, and the stage was in the center. And the people were chanting, "Sing it again, sing it again." And I heard this voice overpowering them, "Feed my sheep, feed my sheep." And when I woke up, when I came out of this trance, I was just totally drenched. And I called my pastor, and he said, just keep praying. He didn't want to say anything to me. He just said, just keep praying and seeking God for the meaning of that. So the Lord had already dealt with me in the church, and of course I didn't want to hear this. And he, once again, spoke to me. And then my third time was when I said that I had a date every night with the Lord at 10 o'clock, and I would take the phone off and go in my room. And when I hit my room that night, I hit the floor, face down, and I was on the floor all night. And the Lord spoke to me about the kind of ministry he had for me. The ministry of evangelist, prophetess, that he was raising me up in the church of God to preach the gospel and certainly win the lost. But I was to break through racial, cultural, and gender barriers. So I gave notice in the company that I was working for. The Lord had blessed me with a wonderful job. And I gave notice. And on that Thursday night, the day I left my job, I had 2 preachers in the Church of God call me, and they both said the same thing. They said the exact same thing. They said, we were down praying. I almost get emotional when I go here, I have to tell you. We were down praying, and God said, call Jackie Smith and ask her to come and preach a revival for you. And they both said the same thing. Jackie, you haven't gone to preaching, have you? We've always known you to be the singer. And it was that was the start of it, Bishop Hill. And in 40 years, now we're 40 years later, I have never asked for a meeting because the Lord told me, don't ever ask for a meeting.
You never had to.
This is how you'll know that this is what I've called you to do.
40 years, Jackie.
40.
4 decades of evangelism.
Yes.